The back straightaway into turn number 3, thick thin, still 3 wide, bringing in Feeney, high, wide, and handsome. He's going to go to the outside and get past Camillo.
I don't mean to be two birds and bees with you folks, but this is how cautions are born.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Feeney Call. Tonight we have on the one and only JR Fitzpatrick. We've been trying to get JR on here for a few times here, but obviously with race season, he's super busy with working on his Pro Late model. We finally got time here to sit off, and I want to say off season, even though he's still tearing cars apart and stuff like that. Little news, I see a lot of social media. You see a lot. I don't want to say a lot. You see a few teams pulling out of the APC Tour, probably either between financial reasons or it's unable to commit to a full season. Seen a couple teams say that they're going to attempt to run the full season. Obviously, costs keep going up to run the tour and stuff like that, which means for a smaller guy that might run every race, it's harder to go to every race knowing you're not going to win. Like if you're going there to run at best 10th, it's really hard when the costs keep going up. Obviously, let's hope that these guys aren't running the tour this year. Maybe go back to run full time at their local track. So that way we don't miss out on some of these guys racing. Another announcement I want to make. We have officially welcomed Wheelhouse 10 Apparel to the podcast as a marketing partner. They make great crew shirts, hats as well, and stuff like that. So if you guys enjoy the podcast, make sure you go over to Wheelhouse 10, give their Facebook a like. If you're getting crew shirts, message them, get some pricing and stuff like that. Let them know you went there because of us. Also want to thank Checkered Flag Auto Supply for jumping on board. Bob Higgins and his crew over in Massachusetts. Great group of guys, stuff like that. So if you're down that way, you're looking for car parts, go to the Checkered Flag Auto Supply. So you'll see their logos popping in and out here and there. So I can't wait to talk to JR and talk about some of the plans he's got for 2024, such as the super late model he released that he was going to be racing full time this year. I want to talk to him about past experience in Pro Late. He got driving a bone stock last year. I want to talk to him about a lot of things, especially because he's got to do some things that I'll never be able to do, and maybe bring up to a couple things that maybe he can help drivers starting out, maybe learn from any mistakes he made when he was younger and maybe had better opportunities than he would now. And yeah, we'll go through there and touch on it, and hopefully he'll give us answers, and which he seems like a pretty open and honest guy, so I'm pretty sure he'll give us answers to anything I ask. And I hope you guys enjoyed listening to me and JR talk. And if you want to see anyone else in the program, let me know. We'll try to get them on here. Obviously, not everyone's interested in doing podcasts and social media and stuff like that. But I'm also looking for more demolition derby drivers or stuff like that, drag racers, road course racers. So if you know anyone that's looking to maybe promote their team for 2024 season, stuff like that, have them message me, and then we'll try to get going for one of the podcasts, probably up in the February, March, April area before the season starts. But without further ado, we're going to introduce JR Fitzpatrick. Welcoming to this week in the podcast, we have the one and only JR Fitzpatrick joining the podcast here. And JR, why don't you take a couple minutes here to introduce yourself?
Yeah, like I said, I'm JR Fitzpatrick, been born and raised in Cambridge, Ontario, 35 years old, soon to be 36 in May. Dad of two beautiful girls. Other than hobby-wise, I really don't have any hobbies. I like camping and I love racing. That's about it.
So if you can race at campgrounds, you're set.
Oh yeah, I can say we've tried it. That's for sure. The girls, when they got their two battery-operated Jeeps, there's always a race going on there.
And that's the thing is you got two, so there's always going to be one fast one, one slow one, right?
Oh yeah, that's definitely the case. My youngest, she's definitely a weapon. I think she's going to be the racer of the two for sure.
So you had some big news you released on Sunday saying you're going back to running the super late models this season. How does that feel that you're finally going back to a division that you've seemed to belong in and enjoy the most?
Yeah, I've always loved super late models. I ran template supers even before I did won that CASCAR championship in '06. So '05, I ran all new summer speed weeks with template super late, and I didn't get involved in outlaw super late models till I met Alora, my wife now. Her whole family is into supers. Obviously, her grandfather owns, I think, half the field out there right now, but they're big supporters of the class. The cars are just awesome. All that body, all that horsepower. It's a real race car, man. I mean, you actually have to feather the throttle with them and be smooth, and it's just a wicked ride. And when I told my father-in-law I wasn't really going to be racing much this year, just taking a step back, he kind of said the hell with that, and he decided to purchase a really good outlaw and pick me as a driver. So it's pretty cool to be back racing with him. We had a lot of fun together back when we raced. Geez, I raced with him from 2012 on and off all the way up until I went full time in 15. So we always have a lot of fun, and it's very family oriented when we're all together. And yeah, just looking to do something a little less serious. I mean, I know the supers are more of a high horsepower machine, but for whatever reason, they just feel a little more relaxed on race day.
It's a little bit more relaxed because it's kind of you show up, you go through your tech once, and then you just work on the car, set up, go race for the day, so you don't have to worry about almost the tight knit rules of like say the APC series or stuff like that, where there's less stress of once you made through tech, you're good. There's no coming back later, and
Yeah, and really, I think the only time you got to go through tech is after the race. But I'm sure we'll go through just to make sure we're good because I ran Bobby Blunt's car at Flamborough and we were light by 3 pounds and I had to start last. I don't want to do that too often, but I feel like the supers are more of like a Saturday night race. Like you show up a little later in the afternoon, you get your 2 10 lap practices, and then you go qualify and then you race. So it's definitely more relaxed. The family can hang around the trailer. It's not so busy. The APC tour, it's as close to a professional deal as you get, and the grind through the week and on race day is just unreal. I mean, you're always replacing parts and whatnot. Now, is that necessary? Probably not. But if you want to win championships, you got to finish races. So we go through that car a lot, replace a lot of stuff, spend a ton of money. So I feel like I just need to take a little break, a little breather from all that. And I'm not saying I'm not going to go back next year. It's just 2024, and it's going to take a break and try and enjoy a race car a little bit.
yeah, I find that personally as well too. Like when you spend a lot of money and you had a kind of rough season in 2023, like leading races and a ball joint breaks or stuff like that at Flamborough and stuff like that. All that takes a toll on your mental health and how you feel about racing. So sometimes you have to kind of step back from maybe being so serious and go back to just where you enjoy racing. And if that's say super late models or modifieds or stuff like that, you got to do that just to put a smile on your face. That way you can still go out there and want to do it and not be like, I'm done with racing. It's over. It's like you've been a racer ever since I started following racing in Canada, which I want to say probably like 2010 was when I started watching racing more up here from like NASCAR and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so when you drive the super late models, you're also someone that has experience in like in what's now an Xfinity car or a Craftsman truck. Is that something you can kind of compare an outlaw to? It's like something you actually have to drive off the corners.
Honestly, man, like the super late feels like it's got more power than than a truck or an Xfinity car because two things: an outlaw car is legit faster. So if you put the two cars on the same track, even New Smyrna or whatnot, an outlaw car is gonna be a lot faster. So they got more horsepower, they're way lighter, they got a better tire and better suspension. So it definitely takes a lot of finesse to drive an outlaw car, especially down south. I mean, when I drove Bobby Blunt's car at Toledo, you're talking 800 horsepower, and it's wild. It was awesome. Like Flamborough, I really had to roll to the throttle. I mean, coming to the green when I think on the outside of Glenn Watson there, I literally spun the wheels to our finish line. It's just a wicked feeling. But I think that's what I want. I want to be able to go and enjoy the car. Like the competition is so stiff in the APC, it just feels like a job, right? So I just feel taking a little breather, go to the racetrack, enjoy your time, enjoy being there, enjoy the car, and yeah, take the family and have some fun.
So do you find with like a APC series style race with it being all crane engines and stuff like that it takes some of the driver element away from the car for like trying to save your car for the long run because you're all running like same motors and stuff like that? Like obviously you could still save a little bit of tire and stuff, but like I noticed it's a lot of basically pack racing. You just ride in the pack until the end, and then people are starting to go from like halfway on.
Honestly, I feel like if you're a good driver and you have a good car, you can put yourself top of the board in practice, qualifying even. I think where the experience comes in is getting your car dialed for the end of the race because being honest, there's 10 cars that have all the same stuff. Like a lot of us have the same stuff. And the tires and the low horsepower of the cars are really overtired for the amount of motor that they have. So it's almost like pack racing, like you said. It's whoever's got the car and meet them at the end of the race. Everybody's so close. I remember one year at Delaware, I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago. I think the top 28 cars were within 2/10. So that's really tough to manage. But I just feel like there's a lot of good drivers there. It's just whoever can make it to the end is going to win the race.
So I also noticed on social media a while ago, you made a post saying you didn't realize how good you had it younger on in your career. So maybe as the younger drivers are coming up, maybe you can explain what that post meant so they can kind of, I don't want to say follow in your footsteps, but maybe learn from a mistake that you might have made early on.
Yeah, basically just when you get older and you start racing a lot out of your own pocket and like I've been racing since I was 7 up at Solid Beach. My family has done well. My dad's a successful businessman, has done really well for himself. We had a professional race team here from 1996 till 2014. Everything was paid for. I had 4 or 5 Pinty's cars down there one time. Tons of motors, tons of transmissions, all this stuff. And I really just drove and walked around like a bit of an asshole, if you want me to be honest, just because again, I had 2 full-time employees working on cars. Like it was just one of those deals you had it made. And I never really understood how good I had it until you start paying for your own stuff, working on your own stuff. Obviously I had to be down there, but I didn't build cars like I do now. So I think it taught me a whole new appreciation, not just for racing, but for grassroots racing, because when I was done with Pinty's, I did a lot more grass. I went super stock, mini stock. I tried a bone stock last year. I've tried all these different type of classes, and it really shows you how good all these people are that don't have the means to move up. And I think that's what I really enjoyed about going to other divisions is trying to beat the best guy in that class, because just because they're in a bone stock or a hurricane midget or all the way up to a super late doesn't mean that individual isn't good enough to race Pinty's. It just means that they just don't have the money. So I've gotten to race against a ton of really good race car drivers all across the province, all across the U.S., and there's a ton of them, man. I can tell you, I really wish I had a better head on my shoulders when I was younger. I think I could have a little better than I have, but I'm pretty happy with how things have turned out.
So you brought up the bone stock race you did at Flamborough last year, and we kind of touched on that when Miss Penny and Chris that were on. What was that for you mentally because I heard it was a bit tough on you after practice and stuff like that. What was that for you mentally, like jumping into like a bone stock race? Is that something that plays in the back of your head that like a lot of these guys that race at Flamborough and the bone
Mhm.
stocks look up to JR Fitzpatrick because of how successful you've been there in the pro late models?
Well, and if that was the case, I would appreciate that for sure. It's just, again, you don't realize how tough a car is that you're not used to ever driving, right? Like I drove a mini stock, but we're talking bone stock. Like this baby is stock. Like you get in that thing and it's rolling over and the left rear is off the ground. And Chris told me, he's like, you don't want to overdrive it. So the first thing I do, I get out of the late model practice, get in the bone stock, go down the straightaway, which I felt like was 10 miles an hour, and I just send it off into one, like deep, and the left rear comes off the ground, and it just keeps wanting to spin out. So I'm slow, like I'm really bad, getting frustrated, trying to drive harder, getting mad at myself because I'm looking like a complete fool. I think I almost spun out. I almost took a guy out in practice. I was bad. I was really bad. And then really what happened after, oh, we qualified, and then I decided, oh, I'm gonna try and do something with the tire pressure. Didn't see Chris because he wasn't coming till later, so I just tried something and it was worse. So Chris showed up, I think just before the feature, and I literally walked up and said, I'm not driving it, man. Like I suck. I'm embarrassed. The cars can do so much better, blah blah blah. And he literally just like grabbed me by the shoulders and like, hey, nobody cares. Just go have fun. That's what the class is all about. Just enjoy yourself, and you'll see like the results will come. And so I'm like, no, I don't want to. And then even Miss Penny's like, just shut up and drive it. So I got in the car, and honestly, I'm so happy that they told me that because man, I had so much fun. And all it was I was literally over driving the car. So when I started following more people, I just went easier in and got to the gas harder, like sooner. You know, the old saying, easy and hard off, but it's really the case with the bone stock. And once I did that, I figured it out. It was going, it was, we were rolling really good. And I think I finished fifth or something. I don't know. I started like 12. But yeah, I know I had a blast. I would certainly do it again. Literally had a blast. It's so much fun. Yeah, it's just, you just got to learn the different techniques of different cars, and just because they're, you know, maybe 2 or 3 seconds slower than a late model doesn't mean you can drive it harder. Believe me, that's something I learned real quick.
So that brings up to the next question. When you jump into other cars, say a mini stock, a bone stock, or if you get thrown in, say, like a TQ midget or stuff like that, what are some of the skills you can take from maybe some of the more basic forms of racing that people could apply to as they move up the line?
Honestly, the only thing I think really applies when you try all different kinds of cars is just experience, right? Like having to run that bone stock, now I got experience. Now the things I've learned, I can maybe translate to something else. The TQ, same thing. They're so fast through the corners, so you learn things with that. It's tough to say everything I learned in a TQ I'm going to take to a late model or late model to a super late because every car has its own characteristic. But I think the only thing you're gaining from trying all different kinds of cars is different feels, different attitudes, and it just it builds your experience level. And I feel like that's why I have a fair bit because I think I've driven almost everything but a Canadian vintage modified, and I really want to get in one of those because they look like a handful. So, yeah, I love trying all kinds of cars. I wish I could win in every car. You know, I might have to try and get into that bone stock again, see if I can win. But I'll tell you, those guys at Flamborough are no slouches. Wade Thorne sure kicked everyone's ass that day I was in a car.
And the worst part is, he was in a teammate car to what you were driving too. So it's like, I know you are very competitive by nature. So I know you're sitting there seeing that car that's it's prepared almost the same as when you're driving. You're like, if that car can do it, I can do it. So now you're like, all right, if I do this, I start better and I start practicing better, then you're farther ahead to go into the next round. Um, Obviously, I think you do well at probably more like a place like Peterborough in a bone stock or something like that, because I think the ends are a little bit more smooth in a front wheel drive car at like Sunset or Peterborough, where Flamborough's kind of a weird way you have to turn the car. Like you have to kind of be what would be in a rear wheel drive car. You have to almost be uncontrollably loose to make it fast to the ends. So at least I find
Yeah, so
personally.
Chris even told me like go down and talk to Wade. He'll help you with anything you want. But it was one of those deals. I didn't want to bug him, right? Like he was going for a championship. He's doing his deal. I was just there for fun. I don't want to bug these guys. And two, I was busy with late model too. Like literally, I was jumping back and forth, back and forth. So it was a really busy day. And like I said, I really enjoyed it. I would definitely do it again. I would love to do it again and just go have fun. Because honestly, man, like when Chris told me, like basically grabbed me and just said, "Listen, nobody cares. Just go have fun." And it's true. Like I just went in with the mindset, just go have fun, and I raced way better.
And I feel like that could be applied to a lot of racers that are starting off. They're getting frustrated with the sport of spending the money, fixing the damage. If you go in, I find if you're having a bad season, if you change from, all right, let's go after points, let's go after this, to let's just have fun, I find like a season will almost turn itself back around just because of the outlook that you have differently in the season. So like my first year of late model, I had that blue, orange, and yellow one. I came down
Yeah.
Flamborough one race, and my year I got that car pretty cheap, and I'm like, you know what? Let's have fun. Let's race every time I can. I made a post during a rain delay at sunset saying if someone gave me a set of tires for Flamborough, I'd come down to Flamborough. We literally go to get heat in the tires. You lap me in warm up laps before the feature started, and I'm like, I'm in trouble. Which, by the way, best memory in late models ever, getting lapped by you. In a, like not even race trim, like we were just putting heat in the tires, and all of a sudden I'm like, uh-oh, this is not gonna go well. Because like I had a limited late model from Peterborough against your guys like full blown pros. But like honestly, once we got going, I got a race with like Gary Elliott and yourself and stuff like that. I didn't race as fast as you, but like if you could give one piece of advice for people starting racing, what is something you could say to kind of keep them motivated to stay in the sport through the tougher times at the beginning?
Well, for one, I gotta say, ask questions because even this year at Flamborough, like Cole Quinton's a great young talent coming up through the ranks, and he would never come over and talk or ask questions, and he'd be over there struggling. I can see it. And finally, I just reached out to him on Facebook. It's like, man, you do know, like anytime you get anything, you can come ask because once they started rolling good and picking up little things here and there, he started rolling really good and starting to have fun. So I think a lot of people in the racing industry are willing to help others because we all know that the car counts aren't as good as they were 20 years ago. So anybody is there, a 10 car field doesn't sound as good as a 16 car field. So having more cars there to better. And honestly, everybody's willing to help that one person because we all are competitors. We want to beat everybody on their A game. So yeah, things are expensive, but there's always people that are willing to help that might have parts lying around, advice. And then on top of all that, just keep it fun. I mean, if you start getting too serious about it, you'll get gray hair. And I'm telling you, I don't know if you can see from here, but I am like getting full of gray hair at 35 because I take racing so serious, man. When I'm at the track, I got grumpy on my car. My dad put that on there, but really it's just at the track, you're just laser focused, right? But over the years, you realize that there are people that might want to ask you something. So if you look like a dick all the time, no one's going to want to come talk to you. So I've been trying my best the last few years to open up and just give advice because sometimes a little bit of advice will go a long way with someone.
Well, and I find on the other side of that is if you're willing to help with advice, all of a sudden, if you have a question where you're stuck, say jumping into a bone stock or something like that, if you can go then approach somebody else because you're the one that's normally giving advice, helping somebody else. I find if you're that guy, then you go to ask somebody else, they're more willing to help you, even though you might be the more experienced driver. Like it, I
Definitely. And you're always learning something in racing, man. It doesn't matter what. And you can always use a hand. Like I'll tell you a little story. Like I was testing Flamborough with a car I sold years ago, and Ryan Dick and his dad were there, and I was watching him practice, whatnot. Had a little conversation with him, nothing major. Never really talked to him. Met him, talked to his dad, blah blah. Okay, sounds good. Have a good day, guys. We left, and anyway, the strap pulled out of my floor and it broke the one on the pit cart, so the pit cart fell over. And anyway, we're at the stop sign. Me and my one crew guy trying to lift this thing up. And sure enough, here comes Ryan and his dad driving by, and they pulled over to help us. So little things like that really prove the point that racers are always there to help racers. Doesn't matter what situation you're in. So I've made a lot of friends and family throughout racing. So yeah, it doesn't matter what level you're in. Everybody's willing to help everybody.
and you know what, on that model, it's always been, I don't know if it's a worldwide thing, but definitely in like Ontario, it seems like we all like once we get to the racetrack, it's all hands on deck. Doesn't matter whether you wreck or whatever. We might be grumpy for a few minutes if we get taken out on track or something like that, which it's understandable. You got a lot of time and money invested in these cars, so I understand people getting mad if they get taken out. So, but like I find the same time, if you go to the next race and that guy that took you out all of a sudden is towed back, usually we're still one of the first ones back over there helping. They're trying to get the car back together because he may have taken you out, but he's probably helping you fix the car later that night, especially with two features at Flamborough. But it's just one of those things. It's like we'll race tooth and nail on the track, but in the pits, it's everyone's friends. Let's get all the cars back together. Let's get them all back presentable, and let's get at it.
Yeah, you can really see that in the bone stock class because at Flamborough, it seems like there's always a tight knit of them. In Delaware, geez, there's like 50 or 60 of them there. And I think because people realize that we need more people in the sport. So if that one person gets wrecked and everybody's pointing and laughing and you know the guy or gal goes home all pissed off because everyone's laughing and they wrecked their car or whatever, like it doesn't do any good for anybody. So every time I've been to a racetrack and someone's in a wreck or somebody's in a bind, if there's anything we can do, we've always helped. Yeah, it's just I think that's what I love about the grassroots stuff is everybody's always trying to help put in a hand and have some fun. And it gets a little tougher when you get higher up in the ladder in that ranks, but in some sense, I've seen it, you know, across all the boards. So I think that's part of the reason why I like racing so much.
So, and another thing I want to talk to you about is you've had a little side project on the go. Your number 14, I believe it was your old, is it a cast car, old cast car, or is it an old late model?
No, yeah. So that was my late model that I first started in. So my dad and Donnie Thompson and our cast car crew used to always go New Smyrna in 2000, 2001 and race that car in speed weeks. And they won speed weeks with it, a few races, I believe. And yeah, it's just a Howe Clip Camaro car. Sorry, Howe car, Camaro Clip, 3-link car. And anyway, I got it back from the Woods family in St. Thomas. It was missing a clip, but everything else still there, like shifter boot, the seat, pedals, like a lot of the stuff was still there. So I don't know how I found it, but I was scrolling through Instagram and I seen Jason Woods post. I'm like, man, that looks like my old car. And we started talking, and it sure was. And his dad Bob sold it to me for like scrap price. Like I got it for nothing. So then I put it all together as it was, 12-to-1 box, center link, like all the old school stuff. Like it even had bolt-in ball joints back then. And excuse me. And then when it was all together, ready to go for paint, I'm like, man, I really don't know what I can do with it. Like, I can do V8 stock with it, but that's going to be it. And then I'm like, I got some friends that are road racing. So then I decided I'd cut the clip up a little bit and put a rack on it and then decided to go road racing with it. So it's been a couple years working on it here, but it's a lot of time, a lot of money. It's just something I like playing with on the side and yeah, just waiting to see what we're going to put in for an engine. It was supposed to be a built motor, but I think now it'll just be a 604 crate with a dry sump tank and all that on it. So see if we can go play with it.
So you're gonna try to bring that to Mossport here and clip some curbs with it, or is that gonna be like
Oh yeah, no, I think for my birthday weekend, which is my birthday is May 9th, but the weekend I think of the 7th is the first CASC race, so I'd like to go to that for sure. But if I don't make all the road races, I think I can only make a few right now with a new super late schedule now, but I will try and do it in a V8 stock race. It'll be real interesting because like it's gonna have no left side weight. It'll be like 51, 52% left side weight. So it should be a perfect V8 car because it's not going to handle on the left-hand turns very well, but it'd be a lot of fun. I just want same deal, right? I just want to enjoy the car, enjoy that we built it here and restored it and put another car on the racetrack instead of a graveyard.
and when you come out here to race Mossport, let me know. I know it's Canadian Tire Motorsport Park now, but let me know because I'm like 5 minutes down the road from the track. So I'll definitely try to come out, sneak some pictures of it, and we'll shoot the crap a little bit. But
Yeah,
before
perfect.
we take too much time here, why don't you go through, list all your sponsors for 23 that helped you out for 24 upcoming, where people can find you on social media, and if people can grab any merchandise off you.
So my buddy H2Go Mobile Wash, he's been with me for a few years now. It's a great company. Transaxle heavy duty truck and trailer parts. It was Nike Car Care, but it's changed to All Automotive now. They're in Cambridge and Kitchener. Cambridge Rigging, Equipment Express. Yeah, man, I've had a lot of good people help me over the years and just friends, right? They just love racing. So glad to have them on, and I'm sure a lot of them are going to come back next year. And obviously, my father-in-law's business, Genco Equipment, they've been with me for a long, long time too. and just my family, my parents, my sisters, my wife, my kids. Everybody's always loving racing around here, and it definitely keeps me motivated. Yeah, and my crew, I got to thank them. Obviously, Chris McComb is an older fella that's always been with me for years now, and he's just as diehard about racing as me. Paul Baker, Brendan Adams spotted for me this year. Ted McAllister has been with me since the Cascar days, since Cascar Sportsman. So he was with me since '03 or '02. Yeah, I think so. Ted's awesome. He's been around a long time. Who am I missing? My buddy Stretch, I call him Young Chris. Chris Pendlebury, he started with me this year. Great guy. So yeah, man, I got a lot of good guys, and that's what makes this deal fun.
So, and a quick little teaser question, because I see you on Facebook chirping a couple people here. Are you team Kelly Balson or are you team Wally Wilson?
Ooh, I don't know, man. I'm a little upset Wally got that modified because that was my modified before anybody had it. I started building it first, so I like Kelly. I like both guys, but I'm gonna go Team Kelly. I like Kelly.
All right. Unless Wally lets you drive the car, then you might be persuaded the other way.
Yeah, that's why I'm Team Kelly because he let me drive it. Wally hasn't let me driven it yet, but Wally's a good dude. I like Wally, but he's got to let me drive it if he wants me to go to his team.
All right. If not, then you'll have to just borrow my modified and go pass it and flip them off.
Yeah, I can do that.
So I got a question for you. Have you ever flipped somebody off, not because you're mad at them while you're driving, but just because they weren't racing you the way you wanted to be raced?
Oh, yeah, it's happened a lot. When I was younger, I did a lot, but I think in the last like 5 years, I got flipped off one time at a race, and I lost my mind on a person because I just think it's ignorant now. But when I was younger, I flipped a lot of people off. Whatever, it's you're young and dumb, right? Like if someone flips me off now, I try and get over it, but if I keep getting the finger out the window, it's not good.
Yeah. See, my rule is if like somebody like if they like try to self clear off a corner or into a corner, I'll get beside them, give them a one time, hey, like, hey, don't do that, and then that's it. If they keep doing it, then it's they get a bumper or something like that. But it's just I try to race clean, but at a certain point when you're fixing your own cars and stuff like that, you can't have people just taking advantage of your car. And I know you do all your own maintenance, and so I got a question for you before we run out of time here. You are huge on maintenance on your Pro Late model, probably more than anyone that takes on by themselves. Obviously, you said you have a team that might come help you out, but it's mostly you every night in the shop. How many hours between events would you spend in the shop rebuilding the car? And like, what was like the laundry list of like each event things, and what was like something you could do like every other race?
Honestly, it depends how the race went. I mean, if the car was working good, we're usually down the 2 nights a week now because everybody's got families, right? I got girls. So usually I'm home from work like 6:30, 7 o'clock, say hi to the girls, get down there. And usually I'm down there till probably 2:30 in the morning. That's no lie. And my guys usually leave at like 11. Even that's late, right? For guys at work. Like my buddy Paul, he gets up to work, goes to work at 4 in the morning. So 11 for him, he's got a half-hour drive. So yeah, we're always in there. If things go bad, I try to get in there 3 times a week. But yeah, we pull all the axles out. Obviously, the gears have to be changed. We change all the oils all the time. We do the bearings all the time. I always pull the calipers off, look for leaks. I rebuild the calipers every 4 races. Brake pads, I try not to do if I don't have to, because it's just a cost thing, right? But usually it's about 6 races I can do pads. If I'm going for a championship, I get pretty serious about stuff like rads, make sure they're cleaned out. Usually a new one for the last race. But yeah, we clean the rad out all the time. Yeah, man, it's a lot of work. Go through the shocks, always dying on the race. It's just right up front of the APT tour. That's stuff you got to do. And I'm fortunate enough to say we've only ever had one DNF, and it wasn't really a DNF. It just took us out of the race, and that's that alternator last year in 23, and we checked it just for the race. We check it before we close the hood to go to pre-race tech. We always check that stuff, and it was working just fine. So it's a fluke thing. You know, I'm proud to say we haven't had a DNF though in all these years we've raced.
So, and that's a true testament to I think maybe some of the maturity you've gotten since your younger days too. Like you had, I don't want to say easy, but you had more people working on your cars, and now you're like, all right, this is what we got to do to win. And like now, I think that's why you appreciate it so much more now. It's because all this stuff you have to now do yourself, and it's like, I wish I had those guys back in the day again because it'd probably be a little easier.
Well, and you got no one to blame but yourself. So, I want to finish races. I want to win races. I want to win championships because, too, a lot of it's your crew, right? When they're there busting their butts, they don't want you to go out there and wreck all the time. I mean, sure, I think with Rex, we've had a couple DNFs, but mechanically, we haven't had one DNF. So I'm pretty proud of that.
All right, I thank you for joining me this week, JR. I can't wait to see you in the super late models this year and anything else you might pop into, whether it's a Chris Lawrence bone stock or maybe we'll see you in a super stock or the OSS series. I know you've been wanting to kind of jump into there, and maybe we can get you hooked up in a Canadian Vintage Modified.
Yeah, definitely. I'm always open to try anything, really. And this summer is going to be pretty cool. I'm going to try and venture in the States for a couple races and see how we can keep up with those boys. And yeah, just try and have some fun, buddy.
Yeah, and of course, with you driving, it comes in built-in traction control devices, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I got somebody messing me about that today. So, yeah, if anybody wants to know, hearing aids don't come with traction control.
And see here, I was wondering if that's how my dad's truck worked.
It just might.
That would explain so much. All right, have a good night, JR, and thanks for joining me.
Thanks, buddy.